Today's video is brought to you by the Elephant in the Room Tutoring, and this will be a comprehensive guide for adding, subtracting, dividing and multiplying. So let's start with adding. Remember the steps. Step 1, make the bottom the same, and 2, add as normal. So let's do our first example. So we've got 3 over 10 and we're going to add 2 over 10. The bottoms are the same, so we go to step 2, we add as normal. So 3 add 2 is 5, 5 out of 10. A lot of students want to do 10 add 10 is 20 and add the bottom. But if we have a couple of squares, so we've got 10 squares, and you have 3 covered in, then you have a further 2 coloured in, then you end up with 5 out of 10, not 5 out of 20. So that's the reason why you don't add the bottoms. It just doesn't make sense. So moving on, we can now start looking at example 2, and this is when the bottoms are not the same. So how do we make them the same is what we are concerned with. So we've got 3 out of 5, and we'll add that to, let's go the 1 over 4. So as you can see, 5 and 4 are not the same. So you can't just add them as normal. You can't go 3 add 1 is 4, and 5 add 4 is 9. So you have to remind yourself to make the bottoms the same. So how do we make 5 and 4 the same? We find a number that they can both be converted to. So I'm going to write out my 5 times table, and then going to write my 4 times table. It's at this point to know I forgot to write number 12, but that doesn't matter so much. As long as you know that the number that they both have in common is 20, then you rewrite the fractions with 20 on the bottom. And then after you've done that, you times 5 by 4 to get to 20, so you do the same to the top. So 3 times 4 is 12. So you do the same to the bottom. 4 times 5 is 20, and you do the same to the top of the fraction. 1 times 5 is 5. So you should have 12 over 20 plus 5 over 20. And then you can add as normal, so 17 over 20. Okay, so if you didn't understand that, please rewind, but we're going to do the exact same technique when we subtract fractions, so you can carry on if you think you'll get the gist as you keep going. So let's try 7 out of 10 minus 2 out of 10. As normal, it's 5 out of 10, nothing too tricky, you just take away the top, leave the bottom as it is. So now we've got a harder or more complicated sum to do. So we've got 4 over 5 minus 1/3, so we have to make the bottoms the same. So we find a number that's in both of the times tables, the 5s and the 3s. So we've done our 5s, we've now done our 3s, and we've realised 15 is in both. So we rewrite the fraction as a fraction over 15 minus a fraction over 15. To get from 5 to 15, we had to times by 3. So we times the top of the fraction by 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. To get from 3 to 15, you times by 5. So to get from 1 to whatever you need, times by 5. And then you take away as normal. Take away the tops, and the bottoms stay the same. So 12 over 15, take away 5 over 15. And you have 7 over 15. Okay, so we're now going to move on to multiplication. So multiplication is the one that I think is the easiest because you simply just go for it. So it says do as normal. So you times the tops, you times the bottoms. You don't try pick random ones and times them together. So 3 times 1 is 3, 6 times 2 is 12, 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 3 is 15. Okay. So even with 2 over 6, times 17 over 20. So even when you get big numbers, you still do as normal 34 over 120. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some dividing. So there are 3 rules. Step 1, keep. Step 2, flip. Step 3, change. Okay, so also known as KFC if you're not able to remember them all. So example 1. Let's do 3 over 5 divided by 1 over 2. So step 1, as you remember, is keep. So we keep 3 over 5, we keep the first fraction the same. Second step is flip, so you flip the divide into a times. Even though you're dividing, you have to times. And then change. you change the 1 over 2 around, and you swap it around. So you get 2 over 1 instead of 1 over 2. And then you times as normal, and you've already learnt to times. So go back if you didn't understand how we did the multiplication bit. So we've got 1 over 3, and we're dividing it by 2 over 7. Pause if you want to do it yourself, but it will then be 1/3 times 7 over 2, because you kept, you flipped, and you changed. Again, 2 over 5, you keep it, you flip to a times, and you change the fraction around, and then that finishes off.